Okay, we're going to continue on in the Apocrypha. This is the book of Judith, chapter 6, verse 6. Then the sword of my army and my host of servants will pierce your side, and you shall fall among their wounded when I return. Now my slaves will take you into the mountains and put you into one of their hill cities, and you will not perish until you are destroyed with them. If you hope in your heart that you will not be taken, your face must not be downcast. I have spoken, and none of these things that I have said will fail to be fulfilled. Then Holofernes ordered his slaves who were standing by at his tent to seize Achior and take him away to Bethulia and turn him over to the Israelites. And his slaves seized him and took him out of the camp into the plain and brought him out into the midst of the plain into the hilly country and reached the springs below were Bethulia. When the men of the town saw them, they caught up their weapons and came up out of the town to the crest of the hill, and all the slingers prevented them from coming up, hurling stones upon them. So they slipped under the hill and left him lying at the foot of the hill and went off to their master. Then the Israelites went down from their town and came upon him. And they unbound him and took him back to Bethune before the magistrates of their town, who in those days were Uzziah, the son of Micah, of the tribe of Simeon, and Shabris, the son of Gothayon, and Jarmis, the son of Melchif. They assembled all the elders of the city, and all their young men and their women hurried together to the meeting, and they put Achior in the midst of all their people. And Uzziah asked him what had happened, and he answered and told him what had happened in the council of Holofernes, and all that he had said in the presence of the leaders of the Assyrians, and how Holofernes had boasted against the house of Israel. Then the people fell down and worshiped God and cried out, Lord God of heaven, look down on their arrogance and take pity on the humiliation of our nation. And look this day upon the face of those who are consecrated to you. Then they consoled Achior and praised him highly. And Uzziah took him from the meeting to his house and gave a banquet for the elders. And they called upon the God of Israel for help all that night. The next day Holofernes ordered his army and all his people who had come to his support to move against Bethulia and to seize the mountain passes and to make war on the Israelites. And every able-bodied man of them moved that day. Their strength was 170,000 infantry and 12,000 cavalry, besides the baggage and the footmen among them, a very great multitude. They encamped in the valley near Bethulia by the spring, and they spread in the breadth over Dothaim as far as Baalbaim, and in the length of Bethulia to Caamon, which faces Esdraelon. But the Israelites, when they saw their numbers, were greatly troubled and said to one another, These people will lick up the face of the whole country, and neither the high mountains nor the valleys nor the hills will bear their weight. And each one took up his weapons, and they kindled fires on their towers, and stayed on guard all night. On the second day, Holofernes led out all his cavalry before the Israelites who were in Bethulia, and he reconnoitered the approaches to the city, and located the springs of water, and seized them, and set guards of soldiers over them, and returned to his army. Then all the rulers of the sons of Esau, and all the leaders of the people of Moab, and the commanders of the seacoast came to him and said, Let our master listen to what we have to say, in order that they may not be disaster to your army. For these people of Israelites do not rely on their spears, but on the mountain heights in which they live. For it is not easy to reach the tops of their mountains. So now, Master, do not fight against them in battle array, and not a man of your army will fall. Remain in your camp and keep every man on your force safe. And let your servants take possession of the springs of water that flows from the foots of the mountains. For from all the inhabitants of Bethuel get their water. Then thirst will destroy them, and they will surrender their town. We and our people will go up to the neighboring mountain summits to prevent anyone from getting out of the town. And they and their wives and their children will be consumed with hunger. And before the sword is drawn against them, they will be laid low in the streets where they live. So you will repay them with evil because they rebelled and did not receive you peaceably. Their words pleased Holofernes and all his attendants, and he gave orders to do as they said. And the camp of the sons of Ammon moved along with 5,000 of the Assyrians, and they encamped in the valley and seized the water supply and the springs of the Israelites. And the sons of Esau and the sons of Ammon went up and encamped in the mountainous country opposite Dothan. And they sent some of them southward and eastward toward Akraba, near Cyrus, on the brook Mach-Hermah. And the rest of the army of the Assyrians encamped in the plain. And they covered the whole face of the country, and their tents and their baggage train encamped in a great multitude. And they made a very great host. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord their God, for their courage failed, because all their enemies had surrounded them, and there was no way to escape from the midst of them. The whole army of Assyria, their infantry, chariots, and cavalry remained in a circle around them for 34 days. And all the buckets of water of all the inhabitants of Bethuel failed, and their cisterns were empty. And they had not a full supply of water to drink for one day, for they measured it out to them to drink. Their little children were disheartened, and the women and the young men fainted with thirst, and fell down in the streets of the town and in the roadways through the gates, and there was no strength left in them any longer. Then all the people, the young men, the women, and the children, gathered together against Uzziah and the rulers of the town. And they cried aloud and said before all the elders, "May God be judge between you and us, for you have done us a great wrong in not making peace with the Assyrians. Now we have no one to help us, but God has sold us into their hands to be laid low before them with thirst and utter destruction. Now call them in and surrender the whole town to the people of Holofernes, and to all his army to be plundered. It is better for us to be plundered by them, for we shall become slaves, and our lives will be preserved, and we shall not see our babies die before our eyes, and our wives and children expire. We call to witness against your heaven and earth, and our God, and the Lord of our forefathers. Let him not do what we have said today." Great lamentation arose from all them alike in the midst of the meeting, and they cried aloud to the Lord God. Then Uzziah said to them, "Courage, brothers, let us hold out for 5 days longer. By that time the Lord our God will show us his mercy, for he will not utterly forsake us. But if these pass and no help comes to us, I will do as you say." So he dismissed the people to their respective stations, and they went away to the walls and the towers of the town and sent their wives and children home. And there was great depression in the town. In those days, news of it came to Judith, the daughter of Miriah, the son of Ox, the son of Joseph, the son of Oziel,